Hello and welcome back to Matt Hayes Tottenham blog and to another Transfer Talk live stream. Today I'm going to be talking about, again, the latest developments over the last 24 or so hours with Tottenham's transfer window. I'm going to be talking about Vincent Janssen and the situation with strikers at the club at the moment. I'm also going to talk about the Celso and Eriksen situation, as well as Toby, Alderweireld, and our kind of where we are with fullbacks at the moment. So before we get started in the video, I am running a Facebook group. I'm going to leave a link in the description to that if you want to go over there and join it. And I'm also running a fantasy football league. Again, I'll leave the code in the description. And I'm also going to be doing a giveaway on this channel when I reach 1,000 subscribers. So at the moment I'm at 830, but I'm hoping to get to 1,000 before the season starts, so I can give out that jersey as quickly as possible. So if you want to share out my channel and share my videos and stuff like that, and we get to 1,000 as soon as we can. The first thing to start with really is Vincent Janssen. He left the club yesterday to join the Mexican side FC Monterrey in a deal worth up to £10 million. We signed him for, I think it was 17 million from AZ Alkmaar in the Dutch league a couple of years ago. And when we signed him, he was, I wouldn't say an exciting signing, but he was someone we were looking forward to seeing in a Tottenham jersey because of the record that he had with the club he was at. He was the top scorer in the Eredivisie in his last season with Alkmaar, and when we brought him in, obviously we knew he was going to be a backup to Kane and stuff like that. But it never really happened for him. He was someone who, when he did go on the pitch, you see he gave his all and he cared about the club and sort of what he was given to the fans, but it never quite materialised to anything in terms of form or goals and stuff like that. So, because, I mean, in the last 2 seasons he's only actually played 40 minutes of competitive football for us. So to get in any amount of money is good for a player who's, I mean, he's never going to offer anything to the squad in the future, and I mean, we could tell he wasn't in Pochettino's plans the way he's been loaned out and stuff like that. And I think those loan deals, because it's not something that Pochettino usually likes to do. He likes to, when he wants to develop players, if he wants to get them into the first team, he usually keeps them in the squad, and he gets them training and playing with the reserves or something like that. So I think the loaning out was a thing where he was just trying to get a bit of form, or get Janssen, get his name out there again, in the hope that he could bump up the price a bit. And I don't know if that has happened, but anything up to 10 million I think is a good deal for him. It's money that I'm sure is going to be reinvested in the signings that we're hoping to make throughout the rest of the window. Again, it's not really, you can't really say it's sad to see him go, because we didn't see a lot of him in a Spurs jersey over the last few years. But I know when he came on, he made that substitute appearance against Brighton in the Premier League late last season, and I mean, the fans were singing his name and stuff, and he had a chance as well. So he was in the fans' hearts, but unfortunately he couldn't really do it on the pitch, and at the end of the day that's all that matters when you're playing football. So he has now left. He's joined FC Monterrey in the Mexican league, and it's hard to see where that leaves us with strikers at the moment, because obviously Fernando Llorente has also left the club this summer. His 2-year contract expired on the 1st of July, and he is now a free agent. The club have offered him a new contract on reduced terms, but he's believed to be sort of weighing up his options. He's also had offers from Fiorentina and a number of other unnamed clubs. So we don't really know what he's going to do at the moment, but as it stands, Harry Kane is our only first team recognised striker. I mean, Heung-min Son and Lucas Moura can play in that position as well, and they have in the past. But I think because their main position is midfield, if we are trying to building a team that's going on to hopefully win trophies, moving players around like that wouldn't be ideal, and we'd like to play the likes of Son and Lucas in their main positions. So Pochettino, after the sale of Janssen in Shanghai, was actually asked about the situation of strikers at the moment, specifically Troy Parrott, who really impressed on Sunday against Juventus, and kind of what his situation is at the club at the moment. So Pochettino was asked, if we would see him in the first team over the next year or so, and he said he's still so young, but we will see what happens at the end of the transfer market. If we still have the squad we have today, of course he's going to have the chance to be part of the first team. And he was also speaking again about who's in control of transfers at the club, and it seems to be Daniel Levy and Daniel Levy alone. Obviously Pochettino will have the main say in terms of what players or what type of player is targeted by the club, but Pochettino, he's reiterated he's not in control of signings at Tottenham. He said always the club sign players, not Mauricio. Of course, in that structure, sometimes you have a more important part in your opinion and sometimes not. We share the success, and when they fail, always a manager is responsible. He was asked if there was any chance of Llorente joining as well, and he said, I'm not the person you need to ask. So it is quite clear that Pochettino doesn't have full control over the transfers, and with the type of manager that he is and the way he likes to work with the team, I don't think that's something that would be ideal for him, but when he signed that contract to work under Daniel Levy, I'm sure he knew that he would be in charge of the squad side of things, and he'd be given these players and be told what to do with those players. So I'm sure he knew that transfers wasn't going to be one of his main duties at the club. But going forward, and the project that he's trying to build, I do think that could be something that he will try to change. And he has in the past said he would like more control over that. So I don't know if we'll see a change in that over the next couple of years, but hopefully we will, because Daniel Levy, if he's given like a list of 4 or 5 players, like in the past he would have gone for the cheapest player more than likely. That could be changing now. Obviously we've made that signing, Tanguy and Dembele, and I see a few of you asking there as well, Giovani, Lo Celso. The latest on Lo Celso is there's not much really to speak about. He hasn't travelled with Real Betis on their pre-season tour to Mexico, but that is probably to do with his international commitments earlier in the summer. He was playing in the Copa America, the likes of Juan Foyt, who isn't part of our pre-season tour as well. So it doesn't look like he's been left behind to complete a transfer to another club. Having said that, Real Betis have signed playmaker Nabil Fekir from Lyon for about £17 million. So it does look like they may have signed a replacement there for Giovanni Lo Celso. But obviously we heard from Sky Sports earlier in the summer as well that talks between the two clubs have ended, but Tottenham still maintain their interest in the player and will revisit the deal if Christian Eriksen leaves this summer. Now Sky Sports have reported, I think it was yesterday, they said Tottenham are now entertaining the possibility of signing Lo Celso and keeping Christian Eriksen. It's a really exciting prospect if we will have those two really good players, and as well the likes of Ali's son Lucas in the team. I don't really know where the money is going to come from, because obviously Tottenham aren't a club who traditionally have a great budget, and you kind of have to think that the money for Ndombele would have been the bulk of the Champions League prize fund we had, and there's not many other areas that we could have money from because of what's been invested in the new stadium and the training facilities and stuff like that. But according to Sky Sports, it is something that could happen, keeping Lo Celso or signing Lo Celso and keeping Eriksen. The latest on the fees for Lo Celso could be in and around £50 million. Now, he has an £88 million release clause in his contract, but earlier in the window, Real Betis were supposedly looking for about £70 million. Now, that price has drastically dropped in the last week or so. Maybe because they have signed Fekir and they have a replacement, so they don't need to bring in as much funds as they might have done before they signed their replacement, because they might have been expecting to spend more on a different player or something like that. They're also in a difficult financial position at the moment, having missed out on European football, as I've said in my last few streams as well. They need to generate that money that they otherwise would have got from prize funds and TV rights and stuff like that. And also there's a few clauses in Giovanni Lo Celso's contract with Real Betis that would be interesting to Daniel Levy. The main one is that if Betis reject an offer for more than double what they signed him for, so they signed him for about £22 million. So if they reject an offer for £44 million or more, they will have to increase Giovanni Lo Celso's wage. And because of the financial situation they're in at the moment, that mightn't be something that's possible for them. So a bid of about £50 million could be enough to bring him to Tottenham. As for Christian Eriksen, everything's really gone quiet on that front. There's rumours that we have offered him a new contract worth £200,000 a week, which would make him the highest paid player at the club, on par with Harry Kane. There's been no confirmation of that, but in terms of teams signing him, there hasn't been much in the last week or two. Atletico Madrid were a team that were mentioned as well, but having signed João Felix for over £100 million, and obviously they got a lot of that money back through the Griezmann transfer, they could be getting another €80 million from that because of a clause in his contract. I don't think they will be reinvesting that money back in to transfers, because aside from João Felix, they have signed a number of players, obviously Kieran Trippier as well. So it doesn't really seem likely that they will be putting a lot more money into their transfers, mainly because of that João Felix signing. So it is looking like Christian Eriksen could actually be staying at the club. Obviously he has travelled, he's in Shanghai with the team at the moment. He didn't feature against Juventus, but according to Pochettino that was down to an injury, which is also why he was training away from the team in our first few days in Asia as well. So if we get to keep Lo Celso and Eriksen, the trio that we usually play behind the striker, the options that we have there in Lo Celso, Eriksen, Ali, Lucas, Son, Lamela if he stays, and then the two behind them, there's Harry Winks, Moussa Sissoko, Tanguy Ndombele, Eric Dyer, Victor Wanyama. That's a really formidable midfield, and looking at the top two, which is obviously what we should be aiming to reach their level this season, Man City have strengthened their midfield a bit with the signing of Rodri, but Liverpool I think Liverpool, where they missed out last season was the midfield, because they don't have the strongest midfield. I mean, players like Fabinho and Naby Keita, who obviously came in, they were good players, and obviously they played a big part of them doing as well as they did, finishing second and winning the Champions League. But they're not the best players. They're not the best midfielders in the league, and they have a bit of weakness there as well with the likes of Jordan Henderson, and they don't have, I suppose, an attacking threat from midfield that Man City and we do. So I think we could be passing out Liverpool in the midfield, but I don't know for the rest of the team if we will reach the level that's needed to catch them in the league this season. And Paul O'Leary here is saying, what about Toby? Is he staying? It looks like he will be staying for this season. There's a £25 million release clause in his contract that expires in 2 days' time, and from what we've heard, no team has yet triggered that release clause, which I think is really interesting, because a player of his quality for £25 million is an absolute bargain, and it's quite surprising that no team has actually come in and activated that clause. But I think the way this is shaping up at the moment, he also has been offered a new contract worth about £150,000, but he wants £180,000, but there's a bit of a discrepancy there, and personally I don't think he will sign a new contract. But he's pushing on in terms of age now, and he has said a lot in the past that he wants to finish his career at Ajax, and even after that Champions League semi-final, you could see it, he was more inclined to console the Ajax players rather than celebrate the victory, and he even said it himself, he found it hard to be happy because Ajax is his team and that's the team that he knocked out. So I think what's going to happen is he will join Ajax on a free transfer next summer, and that could be maybe the ideal situation for us, because we have obviously a really, really good defender going into next season, and while we could get £25 million, it's almost more worth it to keep him this year and then let him go next summer, and then we can sign a replacement. Because of the improvements that we need in the squad, the additions that are going to be made this summer, the budget just mightn't be there for a centre back. So if we do just keep Alderweireld for the year, let him go to Ajax next summer on a free transfer, and then we'll have a bit more money in the transfer budget and we could spend on a centre back then. And even if we don't buy a new centre back, like there is like some really good players there, like you've Jan Vertonghen, Davinson Sanchez and Juan Foyth. Then there's likes of Eric Dyer who can fill in there as well, and some of the young players coming through like Jaffa Tanganga, who was exceptional against Juventus on Sunday. But I think the way this is shaping up, it will be he'll agree a contract with Ajax ahead of next summer. Of course, after January, Ajax can negotiate a pre-contract with him under the Bosman ruling to sign him on the 1st of July 2020. So I think that is what it's looking like at the moment, what will happen. We would have preferred, the kind of base of the team that we had when Pochettino took over in those first few seasons, when he started, building his own team and we started performing well and stuff like that. We would have liked to have kept that team together, and for the most part we have. We've lost Kyle Walker and now Kieran Trippier, but aside from that, there's none of those players have actually left the club whilst they're in a position where they are one of our first team players. So Pochettino himself did say the rebuild was going to be painful, and we have to be prepared for that, but I don't think it's going to be as painful as he might expect, because the players that he's letting go aren't our top players. Like, that's just a fact. Like, Kieran Trippier was one of our worst players last season, one of our worst first team players last season. He's not letting go those players that are pivotal to our team. Like, Christian Eriksen wanted to leave, and it looks like Pochettino's keeping a hold of him, and the same with Alderweireld, even though he will be leaving next summer. So the fact that he's keeping the spine of that team together is so important, and just to make those small additions here and there, like Ndombele, Lo Celso, and more than likely Sessegnon as well, it's the ideal way to build a team. And there's no doubt that if he can keep going this way and he keeps getting the backing from Levy, and the players that are there continue to buy into his philosophy, buy into the way he plays football, and they continue to bond as a team, there's no reason why we won't go on and win trophies in the next few seasons. And Matt in Full Vision saying, I hope Toby does stay a quality player. And he's a great player, but you have to remember that he is getting older now, and he does want to finish his career out at Ajax, so it might be best to get him out before he gets 33, 34, when he starts deteriorating as a player. So get him out and manage to bring in a player as soon as possible that we can rebuild in the team and stuff like that. And Ben S saying there, hang on, apparently we've agreed a fee for Lo Celso, it's the payment structure that's changed, we better not be doing an Arsenal. I don't know if there has been a fee agreed with Lo Celso, but we all know Daniel Levy loves those complicated pay structures. When we signed Moussa Sissoko for £30 million, apparently that was a deal that we paid Newcastle £6 million every year for 5 years. So Levy doesn't like to pay those upfront fees. I'm not sure what the payment structure was for Tongi and Dembele. Um, I know read some things that it was £53 million, so about 10 million in add-ons. But I imagine it's a lot more complicated than that, and it'd be interesting to see what he actually did for that deal. But I'm not sure if we have agreed a fee for Lo Celso yet. But I mean, if we have, of course, that's great news. And actually, we are Tottenham TV were doing a video yesterday or the day before about the latest transfer things, and they made a really interesting point about the fact that Eriksen is still at the club while we're trying to sign Lo Celso. And they said that when Gareth Bale left, and of course we signed that famous 7 players who turned out to be massive flops, but we actually signed the players before we sold Gareth Bale. I think that was a really interesting point that they made, because that could be the thing that we see with Christian Eriksen this summer. If we're not guaranteed to have a replacement, we won't sell him, and we get a player in before we let him go, which, I mean, obviously could still happen because there is still a couple of weeks left in the window. But if it does happen, if he's a player that does want to leave, we will have to let him go. And I said it yesterday as well, no matter what happens with Christian Eriksen, I think it will be the best outcome. I mean, if he does stay, he's obviously sort of reinvested himself in the project and stuff like that, and he does want to stay. But if he does go, if he wants to go, we have to let him go, because we don't want a player in there that doesn't want to be at the club. And as well, because his contract expires next year, it's a very different situation to Toby Alderweireld because of their age and their value and stuff like that. So ideally, if Christian Eriksen wants to leave, it would be this summer, and we get in 60-70 million pounds for him, and I suppose reinvest that in Lo Celso. Shamir here saying, I don't think Sessegnon will be a starting player. I think it might have to be Aurier or Foyt. Well, Lo Celso is actually a left back, or Sessegnon is a left back, so he'll be playing on the other side of defence. But I agree, I don't think he'll be a starting player straight away. If Rose stays, if Rose leaves and it's between Sessegnon and Davis, I think it'll be a very difficult decision for Pochettino to make. But of course we have to remember Sessegnon can play anywhere along the left, so he's very diverse in that way, that he can play in a left back. If we're playing 3 at the back, he can play in a left wing back, or even if needed, he can push onto left wing, where he thrived for Fulham in the Championship. So look, Sessegnon at the moment is looking very, very likely. The last I checked, the odds on Sky Bet were 1-20 for us to sign him. So I mean, that's as good as it's going to get, really, in terms of how likely the thing is without it being officially confirmed. A lot of reports are saying we'll confirm the signings of Sessegnon and Lo Celso this week. Apparently Sessegnon has already had a medical, some saying it's scheduled in for later this week, and the same with Lo Celso, medical in London later this week. Well, as I've said before, I don't really believe those reports completely. Like, if there's an abundance of reports, like there kind of was with Tongi and Dembele in the days leading up to when that transfer was completed, there was so many different outlets from so many different countries saying it's a done deal, it'll be announced soon. So when it's a thing like that, when there's sheer volume in the reports, you kind of have to pay a bit of attention to it. But when there's 1 or 2 papers here and there saying it, it's kind of hard to take seriously. But the outlet I always look out for is Sky Sports, and mainly Sky Sources, because they've been so reliable in the past. And I know a lot of Tottenham fans have some grievances with Sky Sports and the kind of coverage they give the club. But at the end of the day, you do have to recognise they're one of the most reliable sources out there, and that's kind of who I look out for with transfers and stuff like this. Wizzle here is saying, can we just think about this? Arsenal are gassed over getting Ceballos and Saliba, thinking they can make a push. Ceballos is a 1-year loan with no option to buy, and Saliba is away this year. And that is really true. I mean, Arsenal fans are getting up on their high horse about signing Ceballos over us, but at the end of the day, it was Tottenham who pulled out of that deal. Ceballos wanted a loan deal to return to Real Madrid next season because he sees his future at the club. Tottenham didn't want that. They wanted a loan deal with an option or obligation to buy next summer, which is the ideal thing, because with the way we're going at the moment, with the fact that we're building, ideally we bring in a player permanently. Because if we bring in a player for a season and then give him back to Real Madrid, effectively what that's doing is sure, we have a good player for a season, but then next season we're going to have to put a player in there who hasn't played for a year, and bringing Ceballos in could hinder the development of a younger player, or just take game time away from one of our first team players. And I think that's the difference between us and Arsenal at the moment. We're building, but they're trying to stop falling. Again, without trying to be funny about it, it does seem to think with them, they're just trying to stay where they are at the moment. They're trying to build in a kind of spine of that team that can keep them where they are, and then they might hope to push on in the next couple of years. But the deal for them to bring Ceballos in on a season-long loan with no chance of buying next year kind of tells you where they are at the moment in terms of their ambitions, and it does seem to be that they're just trying to stay where they are. and Tottenham are trying to build and we're trying to push on, and it looks like we will be successful in that. As for Saliba as well, Tottenham did register an interest in the player, but there was never a bid made or anything like that. Effectively, what Tottenham did was by registering their interest, they basically pushed up the fee that Arsenal had to pay, and looks like Arsenal will be paying about £30 million for Saliba and loaning him back to Saint Etienne for a year. Which I know it's what we've done with Clark, but we're not in a position where we need to bring a winger in this season, whereas Arsenal, they need a centre-back because Koscielny now is leaving the club, and players like Shkodran Mustafi has just been diabolical there for them in the last year or two. So I'm not really sure why Arsenal are doing that, because they do need a centre-back and they should invest their money, the very little money they do have, in a centre-back that they can have playing first-team football this season. Now, moving on to our full-backs, as I was talking about there, the left-back. Arsenal are also interested in signing Kieran Tierney from Celtic. Now, they had a couple of bids rejected for Tierney. First of all, they offered £15 million, which Celtic immediately turned down, and they said they wanted £25 million. Then Arsenal made a bid for £25 million, but it was an £18 million bid with an additional £7 million to be paid to Celtic if Arsenal qualified for the Champions League. Celtic rebuffed that offer straight away and said it's not realistic for Arsenal to qualify for the Champions League, which I think, looking at the teams in the Premier League at the moment, is a fair thing to say. Now, while Arsenal are still confident of completing that deal, Celtic manager Neil Lennon was talking this morning, and he said, as far as he's concerned, that deal is off and Tierney will not be joining Arsenal this summer. I think this could be a good opportunity for us to go in and get Kieran Tierney. He's not someone who's been mentioned as a target for us this summer, but if it was between Roy and Sessegnon, now the latest for the fees in Sessegnon is Fulham won £40 million, but Tottenham are willing to offer £20 million, as well as Josh Onama and George Kevin and Kudu. So I think if it's a choice between Sessegnon for £20 million and two players, or Kieran Tierney for £25 million, it's an absolute no-brainer. And I don't know if it's a thing where Tierney just doesn't kind of fit into what Pochettino's style of play and stuff. I mean, he is a very attacking fullback and has done really well for Celtic and Scotland, and I know Celtic are playing in a very poor league, but he has impressed, and I think he captained Scotland a couple of times and he was only 19, so he is a really good player and he's a leader. So I think it is interesting that we haven't gone in there, unless there's a feeling with Tottenham that Arsenal will complete that deal. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be too upset if we did go in and get Kieran Tierney, and I'm sure Tottenham would be capable of paying that £25 million up front, because we have a much bigger budget than Arsenal this summer. There's a few questions here. Can you see Wanyama going to Galatasaray for £11 million? I've not really seen any rumours about Wanyama this summer. I know because of the injuries and stuff like that, and because we are Tottenham, there's going to be a lot of rumours. It's a thing, we could see him leave this summer because, as I mentioned, the strength that we have in the midfield at the moment and the signings we're making. But Wanyama, when he is fit and when he does play, he is one of the best players in our team. I know he looked a lot better, I suppose, when he first came in playing in that midfield with Moussa Dembele, but he's a quality player and he has some really good attributes that will help us in the middle of the park. But maybe in terms of going forward, the style of play that might be part of our team next season, that kind of quick-paced counter-attacking football that's kind of being suggested by the signings that we're making, maybe Wanyama wouldn't be an ideal player to have in the team. If he stays, I'll be happy, but if he goes, it won't be the end of the world, because, as I said, we're not selling a first team player, someone who's a pivotal part of our team. So I mean, if he goes, get a bit of money in and reinvest that in a position where we need it more, because we are set in midfield at the moment, and I keep coming back to it, fullbacks is a priority for us this summer, and we need to get some players in, a left back and a right back ideally, but I mean, who knows what's going to happen. Tottenham fan for life, do you think we will sign Celso this summer? And do you think if we sign Ryan Sessegnon this summer, it will be a good signing? I do think we'll sign both of them, Celso and Sessegnon, and I think they both will be good signings. Sessegnon more as a future investment rather than a player who will be beneficial to us in the next couple of seasons. Celso straight away will have an impact. He's a really great player, and he does have that experience playing with PSG in the French league, and he's played a bit in the Champions League and the Europa League as well. So he has been playing at a relatively high level of football, so I'm sure he'll have no problem fitting in there. Let's get a few more questions here. Do you want to leave your questions and opinions in the comments here? I'll read a few of them out and we'll see what we can talk about. I agree on the fullbacks point, most important. Yeah, it is. Like, when Pochettino first started, I keep coming back to when he when he first started hitting this form and stuff, but it's because that's kind of the basis for where we are at the moment. And that last season at Whiter Lane was our best season, so if we can replicate the kind of squad that we had then, in terms of the depth and the balance and stuff in the squad, increasing on quality, then there's no saying what we can achieve. But that season we had Rose and we had Walker playing as our main fullbacks, and we had Davis and Trippier as the rotating fullbacks, and we were so strong in that position both defensively and offensively. So fullbacks is without a doubt our main priority this summer. Now 13th Monkey is saying, forget Arsenal seriously, they pay high wages for Europa players, that's why players go there. It's easy street for unambitious players like Aubameyang. Yeah, I suppose that is fair. They do offer a lot more money than we would in terms of wages and stuff like that. But I also think it's a place where players are guaranteed game time, and they don't need to be on their best form. They don't need to give everything because of the situation Arsenal are in at the moment. And now, for all the criticism Arsene Wenger gets, which is completely fair, he overstayed his welcome at the club, and I mean he brought them up a lot in his first 10 years, but in the last 10 years he almost undid the work that he had previously done. But I think he left a really good squad in place at Arsenal, mainly that attacking lineup of players like Aubameyang, Lacazette, Mkhitaryan. There's a strong midfield in there, like Ramsey, Ozil on his day and stuff like that, but the defence, I suppose he did let them down a bit. But the main thing that Arsenal do that hinders their progression is they let players' contracts run down way too fast and way too soon. Or not way too soon, but way too fast. And they end up letting players go like Ramsey. And Alexis Sanchez at the time when he left, having 6 months left in his contract, a straight swap for Henrik Mkhitaryan was an awful deal for Arsenal at the time. And I know it's worked out better for them because Mkhitaryan has hit a lot more form than Sanchez. But their transfer strategy is without a doubt the thing that's keeping them at the moment in the Europa League and from going on and winning the big trophies. I know they've been successful in the FA Cup in the last few years, but I mean it's a straightforward thing to solve for them. They just need to get players to sign their contracts and stuff like that, and they'd be in a much better position. Obviously I'm not complaining, I enjoy seeing them in the Europa League and them trying to get a bit excited over signing an 18-year-old centre-back and a player on loan ahead of us, but like from a realistic standpoint it is something they could easily improve, and they're just not doing it, which I think is really interesting. Wizzle saying, to be honest, we should just get Sessegnon and Lo Celso and then just give Eriksen and Alderweireld new contracts, and that will honestly be amazing. Fans seem to forget how good Toby is due to his situation. That would be without a doubt the perfect window for us at the moment. Getting in Sessegnon and Lo Celso and keeping Eriksen and Alderweireld. It would be an advantage again to get in a right back, but if that's what happens in this window, we sign those two players and we keep Alderweireld and Eriksen, on top of the signings of Ndombele and Jack Clark as their future investment. I mean, all of a sudden those last two windows when we haven't signed a player are forgotten, because this will be one of the best windows the club has ever had. I know that Bale window when he signed a lot of players, at the time we were thinking that as well, but these players are quality players and they're players who are proven. So if we do get that done, it's the ideal window, and we'll go on and we'll win trophies in the next season or two. And sorry, just an Arsenal fan has snuck in here, so let's just ban her. Now, done. So the window is shaping up very nicely at the moment. Again, going back to what Pochettino said about the transfers, that's something that could hinder us in the window and in future windows. So I really do think that needs to be sorted out with Pochettino and getting him a bit more control over the transfers. But I mean, it seems to be working at the moment, so maybe we can't complain too much. And the deals are getting done, not completed yet, but like Lo Celso and Sessegnon, so close to being completed. And it's looking like this could be a very nice window for us. Now, just to remind you again, I am running a Facebook group. I'll leave a link in the description to that when I publish the live stream as a video afterwards. I also have a fantasy football league, which I'm going to put the code in the description. But if you want it now, it is 8MTEKC, so you can join that fantasy football league. Share it out to your Spurs supporting friends and family and stuff like that. And we're trying to get a big league going. I'm also going to be doing a giveaway when I reach 1,000 subscribers. I'm about 170 away from that at the moment. I'll be giving away a home jersey from the upcoming season, so if you want to share out my videos of my channel and stuff like that, and if you are watching here and you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, do that right now for transfer content over the next couple of weeks, and match previews and reviews as well for pre-season and once the season starts going. And actually, Sandra Oliveira here, she's asking about Gareth Bale and China. it does look like if he does leave Real Madrid this summer, it will be to China. It's not going to be Tottenham for a number of different reasons, like the financial side of things, and it just doesn't seem like a thing that either party wants at the moment. Sky Sports actually this morning confirmed the reports that Bale has gotten an offer of £1 million a week to join a Chinese Super League club. The two Super League clubs that are being mentioned with these rumours are Jiangsu Suning and Beijing Guan. So I don't know if it is one of them, but I think Guangzhou Evergrande have also been mentioned as well. But Gareth Bale actually played for Real Madrid in their pre-season friendly overnight against Arsenal. He scored a goal and missed a penalty in the shootout. But the relationship there between him and Zinedine Zidane has been completely ripped away. Some of the comments they've made in the press have been stuff they absolutely should not have said publicly or even privately. But from Bale's position at the moment, from what his agent has said, he does hope to stay at Real Madrid this summer. But if an appropriate offer does come in, he will happily leave the club and move on to newer things. But from Zinedine Zidane's point of view, he wants him gone. And apparently that was something that Zinedine Zidane made sure would happen when he re-signed his Real Madrid manager. Florentino Perez promised him that if he did sign a long-term permanent deal, Gareth Bale would not be at the club next season. So I don't know if Zinedine Zidane will be happy about what's going on, about the fact that Bale is still there really, and they're not really pushing a move through. And in terms of Real Madrid, actually, while we're on the topic, with Christian Eriksen, it looks like their interest is over. Zidane isn't interested in signing Eriksen, but his main thing is signing Paul Pogba this summer. If he doesn't get Pogba, he might come back and revisit the Eriksen thing, but there might be some other players that he's interested in. Sandra Oliveira asking, you think Asensio injury might change it all? I'm not too sure about that. I did when I first saw it, I thought that might end Dani Ceballos' move to Arsenal. If you're not sure, Marco Asensio in that friendly against Arsenal overnight ruptured his anterior cruciate ligament and is expected to miss the entire forthcoming season. And straight away, even Unai Emery said it could affect Dani Ceballos' move to Arsenal. But according to Sky sources, it doesn't seem like that is the case. He's in London at the moment, and he's having a medical ahead of a 1 year season, a 1 year loan deal that the clubs have agreed already. So, interestingly, I don't think that Asensio injury will have as much of an impact on Real Madrid's transfers as you might have expected. Z Joker here saying, which player would you consider marginal at the moment? Do you think we still need a backup for Kane? What should we push for this season? The marginal players at the moment are the ones that I think are leaving the club. The likes of Vincent Janssen, Joshua Onoma, George Kevin Nkudu, and maybe Victor Wanyama and Eric Dyer. So if we are letting players go, I imagine they will be the ones that are going, and we get accrue some fees from that. Do you think we still need a backup for Kane? I think it will be good to have one, but it's not an important thing because of the likes of Heung-min Son and Lucas Moura, who can fill in there, and in the past season or so have done such a great job in there. And I also think if we do rely on the likes of Son and Lucas, it could give a chance for Troy Parrott to get a bit more game time, because there won't be a proven striker there backing up Kane in like playing in the cup competitions and stuff like that. And Troy Parrott having like the amazing performance from him in the first half of the weekend, I do think, and even as Pochettino said, there could be a place for him in the first team this season. What should we push for this season is the last question there. Domestic trophies in top four. That's, I think, the most realistic and a good ambition to have for the upcoming season, because the likes of City and Liverpool are so strong. I don't think the Premier League is going to happen. And in the Champions League, I mean, teams don't usually have a run like that 2 years in a row unless they're Real Madrid. So I don't think that'll be something that we'll be looking at this season. Ishak here saying, do you think we will sign Ryan's brother Stephen? And what about Dani Alves or Florenzi? I don't think Steven Sessegnon is going to happen, because the rumours that have been developing over the last week or so with the Ryan Sessegnon deal progressing, Stephen hasn't been mentioned in that at all. And it was a bit of a strange one when it first came out, like we weren't really sure why we were going for him. So I don't think that will happen. The same with Dani Alves and Florenzi. Florenzi was never a rumour that gathered much pace, so I mean, straight away I think we could disregard that one. And Dani Alves, because of the amount of money that he would be expecting from the club, and even though he is obviously the most successful player in club history, he's getting old as well. He doesn't fit into that demographic of players that Pochettino wants to bring in, so I don't think that will be happening. 13th Monkey saying, I'm happy for Eriksen and Rose to go, good players but natural born battlers, particularly Eriksen. I think it's a bit unfair to be calling our players battlers. I mean, I know in the recent past, they have, when they've gotten to these big occasions, they haven't quite lived up to what we were expecting of them. Like there's a number of different things we can talk about, not just the finals, like obviously the Champions League final, but the likes of that game we played against Wolves in December when they beat us at Wembley. I'm going back a season to when we lost to West Ham at the London Stadium that season. Chelsea won the league, so it's not fair to call them battlers, but I think it's the thing where the pressure gets to them sometimes. I know that's almost the definition of battlers, but I don't think that's something we should aim at our own players. Alistair saying we need a right back desperately. I watched Foyth at right back against West Ham. Trust me, that is not a thing. Kyle Walker-Peters not there either, sadly, and Serge is a meme. That is definitely a position we can improve on this summer, but if we don't, I don't think we're in a dire situation there. Like Foyth, he has had some poor games, but he's also had some really good games at right back with Argentina and with Tottenham. Kyle Walker-Peters, again, not there. You're right saying that. He's not quite at that level yet. I think he might need a loan somewhere or to get a bit more game time with the youth sides. And Serge is a meme. He's just not quite lived up to the expectations that we had when we signed him from PSG because of the kind of magnitude of the deal. We were looking at that thinking he'd be a really good signing, but it just hasn't quite lived up to what we were expecting. Jadon Sancho, sure it's not the real one, asking here what you think about the new kit. I love it. Yeah, I love the kit. I mean, again, there's always those complaints that the AIA is red, but that's the colour that the company have it. They said that's not something they're gonna change, and I think it's a bit of a fair compromise that on the away kit and the third kit it's not red, but on the home one it does have to be red on the white jersey. It's a nice jersey though. A few nice touches there with the thing in the back of the collar and stuff like that. Albin Ringblom saying we are watching you from Sweden. Oh, thanks for watching. Ishak saying when do you think we'll sign Ryan and Lo Celso? Again in the upcoming week I think will be when these deals will get done. Ideally to get him in for the Audi Cup game next week against Real Madrid and the Inter Milan game when we return to London. 13th Monkey saying Alex Ferguson liked Eriksen but said he goes missing in big games so he didn't sign him. I've never actually heard that quote, but I mean it worked out well for us because we got Eriksen in the end and he's been a really important player for us. So it is true he does sometimes go missing in big games, but he also provides in big games quite a bit. Like the Champions League game we beat Real Madrid 3-1 at Wembley. He was a really good part of that. Of course, got a goal. I think got an assist in that as well. And he came up with some big goals in the Champions League for us. He got that winner against Inter Milan. And I mean, so even last season when we were playing Juventus, he scored a big goal for us there, which unfortunately obviously didn't work out well for us in the end. But I mean, he's a great player, and you can't criticise a player for not doing as well as you might expect in every single game, because that's just not possible. I mean, players' forms vary from game to game, and some players are going to go missing, some players are going to just not perform for a whole season, like we see with Trippier. Paul Dunlop saying, hey Matt, with Ndombele and Lo Celso coming to the club, do you think Eric Dyer may possibly move on? With Big Mo, Victor and Winks there also, with Sissoko, Wanyama and Winks there also, I think he may struggle for game time. That is, as I was saying, Dyer may be one to suffer from the additions we're making in midfield this season. But it could benefit him that the diversity that he has in his play, that he can play centre back and he can play right back as well. And when he does get into the team, he seems to perform well, but injuries have been a problem for him. And just even listening to him out there, that's an incredibly strong midfield. And from the list, Eric Dyer is probably the weakest player that is there. So we could see him move on this summer. Of course, there's been rumours about him for the last 2 or 3 years. So, like I said, if he does go, he's not a prime player in our team. It won't be the end of the world. It may be good to get a bit of money in and invest it where it's needed. Ishak saying, it is good if we do sign them by this week or next week, because to get them with the squad, like the Ndombele deal getting done early. Yeah, I mean, getting them into the squad and integrating them into the team and to the style of play and just everything in and around the club, getting it done as early as possible is the best thing. And Pochettino wanted those deals done by the 8th of July. Obviously that hasn't happened, but getting them in as early as possible now is the priority. And I know Pochettino won't be happy with it because we're off on our pre-season tour and we've only one new player in the squad. But yeah, getting them in as early as possible now should be the priority. 13th Monkey saying, you're right, it's just that players like Eriksen and Rose seem to think they're too good for us. I don't know. I don't think there is that mentality in the squad. There have been players like Kyle Walker, for example, seem to have that opinion, and he was quickly moved on. The club happily let him go. So I think if that was the case with Rose and Eriksen, Pochettino would say, look, off you go, we don't want you here. You're not the kind of person that we want at the club. But I mean, they're good players that have hit really good form and have also had bad spells. So I don't know if they think they're too good for us, but they're probably some of our most important players and some of our best players in terms of quality as well. Jadon Sancho saying, how do you think we will do against Man United? I'm expecting another similar performance to what we saw against Juventus. I mean, the result isn't the most important thing. It's getting game time for players and seeing what they're about, and just putting in a performance. And it was surprising how good we were against Juventus. Not only because of the inexperience in our team and the strength of Juventus' team, but because it was our first game back after a long break, the first break they've had in quite a while. But like the sharpness of the players and how like the likes of Son and Troy Parrott, they were so quick, they were so aware. It was almost like it was a mid-season game in one of our best runs of form. So that was a really impressive showing. I think we'll see something similar against United tomorrow. Obviously United not in the best position at the moment. They have made a number of signings like Daniel James and Wan-Bissaka, who I'm sure we will see playing against us tomorrow. But I mean, if we win the game, we win the game. If we don't, we don't. The result doesn't matter. I think we're only actually playing 2 games in the International Champions Cup, so it's not a pre-season trophy that we can go on and win like we did last season. But I mean, it's the performance that matters a whole lot more than the result. It's the same going into the games against Real Madrid and Inter Milan over the next couple of weeks as well. Ishak saying, I would be happy with a left back in Ryan, midfielder in Celso, and a right back, and if we sign more players I'd be happy with the transfer window. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I know we said last year the lack of signings that we had was disappointing, but grading the transfer window as a whole, not signing players was a bad thing, but keeping hold of the team that we have is the priority. Well, it was the priority last year, and I think for that reason last window wasn't as disappointing as some people might think. But this season is more important. Having said that, I do think it is more important to bring in players in, and that's getting done. So I mean, look, we're excited for the season ahead, and if we, as I said a few times, if we can get those transfers in, there's no reason why we can't go on and win something this season. So for the last time, I'm running a Facebook group. I'll put a link in the description to that after I publish the video. I'm also doing a fantasy football league for any Spurs fan that wants to join. The code is 8MTEKC, and I'm also doing a giveaway. I'm going to give away a free Spurs jersey when I hit 1,000 subscribers. So when I do hit that mark, I will put out a video letting you know how you can win that, and I'll be announcing a winner as soon as possible. So that's all I have for the live stream today. If you have any more questions about our transfers, leave them down in the comments when I publish this video. Don't forget to share my videos and stuff like that to get to 1,000 subscribers as soon as we possibly can. Thanks for watching.